Welcome back to The Pulse, where we are focused on all things people, power, and politics. Today, we're exactly 2 months out for Inauguration Day on January 20th. And with the new administration will come a lot of changes and new policies we're hearing about. Joining us now to talk about how federal funding makes its way down to states and cities, Mayor Ethan Baker, a Republican on the advisory board for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and Democrat and former state rep Leslie Love. We thank you both for joining us here. Coming back to The Pulse, we've both been on before. All right, we'll begin with you. You worked in the legislature, Leslie, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're at the local level, at the state government, you have to work with people that you just don't see eye to eye with. Are you concerned at all, looking at the vision of this past campaign, that there's going to be a disconnect that hurts the state when it comes to Trump and Whitmer?
Well, under the current administration, I know that Governor Whitmer would be willing to work across the aisle. She's done that during her term now, and I'm sure she'll do that with President-elect. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem. Our governor is an experienced legislator and public servant. So I think we're going to have a really good exchange here. I think she'll be open to it. It's just as long as the big guy in the White House is.
Now, the big guy in the White House has had an issue with Big Gretch here in Lansing, in Michigan, for a long time. In fact, Ethan Baker, as you know, she was very much the target of a lot of his kind of vitriolic rants about Democrat-run states and her particularly about how she handles COVID. How quickly do politicians repair that? And by the way, we should mention you also worked for Reagan after he left office. You understand, I mean, what it was Tip O'Neill and Reagan worked well together, right? Newt Gingrich and Clinton worked well together. Can Whitmer and Trump work well together?
I don't know. I think
good answer, actually.
There's some history there with them. Obviously, I think it's benefited both of them in their own circles in a strange way. So I think will continue. I mean, the governor's come out and said that she's going to do what's best for Michigan, and I really respect that. And I know that she will. She has a history of doing that. To your point, whether or not you agree with her policy, she puts Michigan first. And I think the president-elect, you know, every time he targets Governor Whitmer in some way, it only brings more attention to our state, which I don't think is a bad thing.
Well, and Mayor Duggan sat in this seat on this set just a week ago and talked about some positive things that he remembers from the first Trump administration, including the appointment of U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider, Ben Carson, and he says I've worked with Trump before, I got to work with Trump again. How important is that feel and that attitude when you're a lawmaker?
Absolutely, it's paramount. You have to work in a bipartisan fashion, and you want to move legislation. You want to talk about policy with Democrats, Independents, Republicans. Everyone has to be at the table to be a part of the conversation, because it really does impact all of us. It's not just one group of people will feel this, and so that effort has to come from everyone involved, though. So
let's talk about one issue that you know more intimately than anybody else at this table, which is from a state legislator point of view. Talk about how money from the federal government kind of comes down to the state through grants, I believe, and then the pass-through grants go to the cities. Why is that so important to have a relationship where you actually have a free flow?
Oh, it's necessary, because for right now, when we just had the pandemic and we received the ARPA dollars, for example, that's from the federal government down to state and locals, and how is that spent? And so it's important to have that relationship, and we've had an amazing relationship with the Biden administration for infrastructure investment, to natural resource investment, job creation, small business development, getting over all the pandemic issues. And so those relationships must maintain. And I have to say, I feel like we've had a glorious time under the Biden administration, and I am cautious about what this is going to look like with a Trump administration.
So we hear about the Department of Education, the president-elect campaign saying, I want to disband it altogether. Ethan, you bring up a good point. Your old mentor and your friend Ronald Reagan talked about this back in 1982. Let's disband the Department of Education. This isn't a Trumpian idea.
No, it's been a conservative ideology, a plan for decades now. And you said earlier in your intro, it takes a supermajority of the Senate to make it happen. You can't get a supermajority of the Senate for almost anything today. So I don't think that's really going to happen. Do I think there'll be some changes? There's changes when any new party comes in the administration. Things are always different, but I would not focus so much on worrying about the Department of Education being disbanded. I really just don't think it's the right thing to focus on. There's a lot of other things to focus on.
Some people are worried about it because, as I said earlier, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you worry about how you're going to be treated under a certain administration. They worry that the education department could be disbanded. Would that be something that would be also bad in your mind as a former state lawmaker, Leslie Love?
To disband the Department of Education?
And let the money go down to the locals. Let the states handle it.
No, this is, and I think this is probably one of those issues that Democrats really bite their nails about, particularly here in Michigan, because of the amount of investment we've put into education. And so it is a partnership from the federal and the state dollars that come together to help everything from our food services in the schools to technology. And so that relationship has to be coordinated and friendly, for lack of a better word.
Let's just say that the Department of Education, as you say, takes a supermajority to wipe out 53 Republicans in the Senate. You need everyone, plus you need, it's just probably not going to happen. However, there are a lot of concerns that people have about how in touch some of these administrative officials are. Elon Musk has said people are going to have to suffer a little bit when he makes his cuts in the efficiency department. Is that something that you think makes anyone comfortable at the state and local level? And how you as a mayor, even though you're a Republican, you're a nonpartisan mayor, are you concerned about that?
Sure, certainly. And I will say, to Leslie's point, we have had a lot of money come out of Washington over the past few years because of COVID primarily. Those ARPA dollars were unique in that they did filter directly to a lot of cities that typically they go to the state, and then we as cities have to fight the state government to get those funds. These dollars came directly to the city, so that's been huge for us. So yeah, there's some concern. You know, we've gotten a little bit accustomed to that. We've had a really good relationship with our federal representatives, getting essentially earmarks coming out of Congress. We've been able to fund a lot of projects that you just wonder how that's going to change with a new Congress, with a new administration. Some of the efficiency stuff and the pain we're all going to feel, there's going to be whiplash no matter what. We're going to hold on at the city level and hope for the best, and that sounds kind of scary and a little bit maybe pie in the sky, but I'm really proud of the work we do at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We lobby members of the administration. We work really hard in Washington to say, hey, make sure the locals have a voice, because frankly, the bigger cities, they tend to get all the attention because they've got the population and they've got the resources to do it. But there are 1,400 other cities in this country with mayors who band together at the U.S. Conference of Mayors who work hard to get those dollars directly.
We only have about 1 minute left, but I want to give you, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the point. Big cities, when I was in the legislature, Detroit always had to fight for its peace. I know we're the big city, but we also take on some of the largest issues in the state. And so we do need those dollars. And I know that some cities like Troy can get a little upset with us to represent Detroit, but it's so important because this is a huge international border. What we do in the city affects everything else in the state. I think it has rippling effects.
And is that why
we continue the investment?
And that investment that Governor Whitmer is talking about, I don't want to join these other Democratic governors in fighting Donald Trump. I want to figure out a way to work with him. This is partially selfish. You want funds to come your way. You want to have a good relationship, right?
Absolutely. And they've already been fighting. We know that. So now it's time to repair that and get the work done for the people of the state of Michigan.
How optimistic are you that both at the federal and state level and city levels that we can work together under a divided country? Ethan?
I'm more optimistic probably than some, but I tend to be. I think that there's more good going on than bad in a lot of ways, and we're going to do what we need to get our cities taken care of.
We're going to have, as long as we have a really strong Democratic governor in the state of Michigan and a fighter, and I know we have that with Gretchen Whitmer, I know that there's a candidate that's waiting in the wings to do that in the future, so absolutely.
And all the Republicans who are watching, our friends out there, you're saying we have a strong Republican president. I'm sure you're saying that. Look, bottom line, we have to work together regardless of our stripes, and you've shown us that you can have a good civil conversation that way here on this set. Ethan Baker, a nonpartisan mayor, but a Republican from Troy, and Leslie Love, we thank you for your time today. Still ahead, we're focusing on you and your questions regarding our government, the issues you want to know about, like the inauguration, including concerns over conflicts of interest and Elon Musk. We have the answers for you. We're working for you here on The Pulse.